Welcome back to NewsMakers. Our special guest is the new chairman of Ecan, Alec Neill. Let's just quickly talk about your deputy, Jo Cain. Do you enjoy her confidence?
I enjoy her company and I enjoy her confidence. Jo Cain would have wished to be the chair of Environment Canterbury. When she voted against Sir Kerry on the vote of the no confidence vote, she had little choice but to stand down as deputy chair. She did that. She was re-elected unopposed.
Are you watching your back?
Not at all, not at all. Hey, Jo and I have sat together for the last 2 years. I believe that she's revigorated now as a result of the change. She's definitely had new responsibilities placed upon her, and there is very close communication between the two of us. We actually know what each other is doing, and I've given her a desk in my room.
Should be happy about that, Alec.
Keep your enemies close and your friends even closer.
It's very interesting that at no stage in the first part of the show, when we've talked about why Sir Kerry was deposed, neither you or any of the ringleaders seem to want to go anywhere near the concerns about water management.
Oh, I'm very happy to talk about water management. That's partly why I'm here.
Do you accept that was a factor behind the leadership revolt?
If you're talking about the lack of desire to become involved in the Canterbury Strategic Water Study and generally being reactive rather than proactive, then the answer is yes, it was one of the major reasons. If you're actually insinuating, and I'm not sure if you are, about allegations of conflict of interest, that definitely had no place in the revolt. All
right. Well, let's just cover off this conflict of interest concern. Councillors Oldfield, Murray and Harrow are in correspondence with the Auditor-General's office. Was it appropriate for regional councillors holding water consents and with irrigation interests to have voted on the proposal for those water management charges?
Oh, I believe absolutely. First of all, you've got to understand what they were actually voting on. And I don't want to take up too much time, but to put it in as simple a terms as I can, that we have to provide the government with a State of the Environment report every 3 years. That, as it relates to water, costs $2.2 million. Sir Kerry and 2021 Labor, a political organisation which provides candidates for the elections for Environment Canterbury, had promoted that charge should move from general rates across to what's called a user pays charge under the Resource Management Act. Yep. So the $2.2 million that we collect at the moment out of general rates, which is $5 a head per household approximately, would move across to a specific group of individuals, say around 4,000 of them that hold water consents, and that instead of everyone paying for the State of the Environment report, only a small group would be paying for it, and that they would be charged somewhere between $100 at the bottom end and perhaps $2,000 depending on the size of their property and valuation, etc.
But don't you accept that these councillors had a naked self-interest in this?
But didn't the city councillors, and I'm talking about the councillors that represent city seats, of which I'm one, have a similar ability, because they were actually courting their own voter to say, hey, we've reduced your rates, and they themselves were getting an equal benefit by reducing their own rates in the city, even though the rates of certain persons in the country were
But the general rates would have still risen by, on average, about 2.5%. Well, under the proposal.
The 2.2 million is the difference of the money going from a general rate bin into a user pays charge under Section 30. But remember one thing, it was going to cost $400,000 to collect that 2.2 million, which would come off the top. Sure,
but in terms of the
It was a stupid charge.
OK, irrespective of the pros and cons of the charge, the ethics of the voting, let me put it this way. If you held water consents or had absolute irrigation interests, would you vote on such a measure, or would you withdraw?
On that particular issue, because it was actually about a State of the Environment report that was being funded in a different manner, I would have voted, and they got a legal opinion to say they were entitled to vote. Now, they have a legal opinion which has been provided by our council at our council's expense, which says they're entitled to vote. This is a political beat-up by one member of Parliament sitting in the central Christchurch for political purposes. It's not about good governance. It's about political expedience.
All right. In broad terms, and I know that we can't change the world in 13 months, but in broad terms, are you open-minded to the idea that high water users should pay some form of user pays for water use?
Yes, yes, I am, and that in fact is exactly what the Canterbury Strategic Water Study is recommending, is that in time the general rate component of water will move across to users.
So you're okay with that?
Oh, relaxed about that.
All right.
But I'm very annoyed about the political beat-up about farming people would never be allowed to vote on anything. Hey, they have wetlands on their farms, therefore they can't vote on wetland issues. They have coastal aspects of their farmland, so therefore they can't vote on coastal issues. They have tussocks, they have rabbits. I mean, anything that they had, they wouldn't be allowed to participate and do their normal work.
Sure, but there was this earlier Auditor-General's opinion, wasn't there, which stated that councillors in such a position would be prohibited from voting on any move towards user pays.
That was a letter sent to the former chairman, and he quoted aspects of that to the council. We had not cited that letter from the Auditor-General at the time that we conducted those votes. Extracts that were supportive of the former chairman's view were expressed, and in fact we got, at council's expense, a legal opinion to say it was in order for them to vote.
All right. Now, Councillor Sage claims the champion of the Razor Gang is now the chair. And she claims that come annual plan time next year, look out for Councillor Neill to make a move to lower the rates burden on high-value dairy farms by increasing the uniform annual general charge. True or false?
False. But the Razor Gang chair is now the chair of Environment Canterbury, and I believe that every ratepayer in Canterbury will be saying, thank God for that, at least there's someone who has a concern about what we pay in rates. We have in place the LTCCP, which is the long-term community plan. For the next 3 years, ending in 2012, our rates have been set. So I have no ability, other than to change matters at the edges, to change the long-term community plan unless I have the support of my council. But I am concerned about expenditure, and I will ensure that we receive value for money for what we expend. This is your money.
Where would you make the cuts if you could?
There is a whole range across the board of potential areas where some savings could be made. If you look at all aspects of governance, in the whole council, the way we run our council itself, I would start actually with our council and look at our own expenditure. Look at bringing people from Timaru and Tekapo to a meeting that took 2 hours, when in fact the next day there is a meeting that you could have added on to so that you save travel expenses. There's a start. Making sure that if we go to Wellington, we go at the best possible price. All of those simple things that every household does as they do their budget. It's not difficult.
We'll pick up on this after the break. More to come. Do stay with us.